Hello, welcome to INXS Access All Areas, a podcast that aims to dive deep into all things great about our favourite band, INXS, doing it with a bunch of patrons around the world, listeners, would-be startup people coming in and just checking us out one-on-one. B, how are you? You're back from Bali. You look refreshed.
Thank you very much. I feel very refreshed, although I've got piles of work to do. I can't wait to get into it. I've got my INXS jacket on and I'm fired.
I feel like through the power of editing and banking some episodes that I really haven't spoken to you for about 3 weeks, which is probably the case. We did actually, before going away, unleash the episode of our very, very trusty friend from Guinness, whose name is Mel Walker. Great name for a sort of an activity, More Walker. But a great episode that we really enjoyed doing, which was really going back to the heady early days of INXS, which is probably pre-INXS with Guinness. We also then put out sort of a bit of a rehash, reissue one of our older Michael tribute episodes that we had like 300, 400, 500 people download that and imagine and re-listen to that, which was very, very pleasing. Since you've been away, B, as you probably know, we put an episode in the vault just before you left with the Hall of Fame visitors, be it John Jamin and Dr. Jim, Danielle from our trusty backup team. Also, we have an episode in the vault that myself, Dr. Jim, John, joined with Nick Bombach from the USA regarding just the Hall of Fame itself. It's almost like my annual pilgrimage to complain and explain why and whinge and try to do it with a straight face, B.
It was really good to listen to. I've listened to it already, and it's quite a good dynamics between the four of you. And I loved the outro with John Jamin coming up with his data. I was like, that is gold. Well done, John. So I applaud you.
He says he's a data guy, but we may package that one together for one of our own sort of podcasts when we want a slight breather ourselves on where we can get our listeners to listen to that one too.
Can I stop you?
Yes.
You're on a roll. You mentioned there that we had the guy on from Guinness, Mel Walker, and I put something out there on the socials earlier, and I says, what were the names of the bands of the INXS members were in first? Right, Haydn, I'm going to challenge you to tell me, do you remember them all? There's at least 5.
What were all the band names? Well, there was Guinness and Dr. Dolphin.
Dr. Dolphin, yeah. Before INXS, so you can say...
Yeah, we could probably say the Farris brothers.
I'm moving it to Haydn. I'm trying to help.
He's a good lip syncer and I'm a good Millie interpreter. So there you go. What are the other two?
All right. Well, it's funny that I remember, I think Tim told us about it, but Mel jolted my mind that John was in a band called Top Cat. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah. And very briefly, they were called the Vegetables.
Well, yes. I think even Michael mentions that for a brief period that they might have had that moniker for a couple of weeks and then they sort of changed it. But look, I guess in the early days of a band, they are playing around with ideas, but I'm glad they did settle with INXS because it's one of the great names when you think about it,
It's brilliant. And there was another one, and I can't find it now. So if you want to go onto our socials and look for it's bright red, and it says what were the names. There's another one that Gary Beers was in. It's a bit of a mouthful. So if you're interested and you want a deep dive, go onto our socials and have a check on that one.
Now, B, you've just come back from Bali, the holiday of all holiday destinations. I guess all the patrons and people like myself want to know if you did end up catching up with Rhett over there. Did you attempt to? Did you try to? Did you?
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Via Instagram, I spoke to him and he was at a trade show in another country. So it's a good job that I just didn't land it. And to tell you the truth, Bali's just nuts on the roads. It takes you forever to get wherever you want to go. So I didn't really go to see his skulls, but I really enjoy watching his skulls on the Instagram pages. So if you're interested, go check out.
Those who aren't aware, Rhett, being Michael's brother, lives in Bali, has a sort of a business there. Is it selling skulls, but not real skulls, are they?
No, it's art. Yeah. So he comes up with like an idea, like pencil head or something, and then it's a piece of art that looks like a skull, but with pencils or whatever it might be.
Yeah, B, what's come across your INXS world in the last 3-4 weeks? Is there anything that you want to share with the listeners that is worthy of mentioning?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's come along onto the website and subscribed, because there's been a huge amount. I think with Michael's birthday and it being Christmas and people having time off, we've had an influx of people subscribing. And I just want to say, I hope that you also subscribe to the newsletter and you'd get the newsletter. So sometimes that newsletter does go into your spam box. So check that spam box out and and read those newsletters.
Yeah, but I thought we might kick things off, pardon the pun, with a little bit of a controlled rant. Is that okay?
Oh dear.
Yeah, you might see on our running sheet
Do
here.
we need to turn the volume down?
No, I'm going to try to articulate it more resonant meaning today, rather than sort of hyperbole and loud sort of vocals and things. But at the point of recording today, we're about 24 hours since the Grammy Awards have been on.
Oh, here we go. I'll just sit back with my herbal tea.
Right. So, I don't know about you, B, but we grew up in a sort of maybe a simpler era where award shows were award shows, and they were, particularly say for the Grammys, they were based on music. And you can go back and look at some great broadcasts between sort of 1983 and probably 2003, and some fantastic sort of artists that are there and some fantastic performances. You get, there's probably, I guess, an album of the year and songs of the year. There's, very notable and iconic sort of winners and nominees. It's I won't say I watched the Grammys yesterday, but all of the pop culture around it made it completely insufferable from probably the last 5 years, really, to be any type of entertaining sort of time that one would spend. Needless to say, the lack of diversity of winners in terms of not so much ethnic backgrounds and things like that, but just in terms of diversity of rock music and pop music and genuine melodies and guitars and things like that. The award winners that now are so geared around certain types of artists, it's just made it unwatchable. Now, I don't know if you know this gentleman called Kanye West. Now, he's a very humble guy. He hates publicity. He likes turning up to award shows and making sure that he's not the centre of attention.
Or his girlfriend.
Yeah, like he only likes to storm on stage saying that Beyonce deserved to win, not Taylor, a few years ago. And he's made his poor Australian wife turn up yesterday in a nude outfit. And apparently they both weren't even invited to the Grammys this year. We then had Will Smith's kids.
Oh my God.
Another great example of a certain family should never attend awards ceremonies.
They look so happy to be
So Will Smith turned up at his last award show and punched Chris Rock, and his son and daughter turned up this year, one with a sort of a letterbox or a TV head stationed around his head. I don't know what it was.
It was a castle or something, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Like a sandcastle.
But then, and the way they're looking at the cameras in this narcissistic way, could these award shows be anything further from music? Could they be anything further from awarding genuine talent? And could they be anything more skewered towards the fact that Beyonce's husband, what's his name, the rapper?
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z. 2 years ago, he levelled racism against the Grammys for not giving his wife the Album of the Year. Well, of course, 2 years later, she's nominated for Album of the Year for a country award. Okay, a country album. That's Album of the Year. So don't tell me that's not a response to being vilified by Jay-Z. Now, imagine if a good white person got up there and culturally misappropriated sort of, black lyrics and things like that. I think Vanilla Ice is still running away from the pushback. And here we have is, Beyonce getting up there taking sort of country music and sort of, cultural appropriating, getting Album of the Year. And I don't know. But it just makes me sort of pleased.
Just listen to her speech, Haydn.
I don't care about her speech. I don't care what she thinks. I don't care what she's about.
Please listen to it.
I'll just finish the rant.
I'll finish the rant, okay.
She basically, and the whole music scene now, I'm so glad that my youth was not attached to this level of music, this level of pop culture, for what it is, because it's not about melodies anymore. It's not about instruments. It's not about technique. It's not about craft. It's not about production. It's not about lyrical resonance. It is all about image. Okay? And music, unfortunately, is no longer the cultural touchstone it used to be, because, people lost sight, of what a great song is and what a great song does to your heart, your mind, and your soul. And now it's all about, how can I monetize this? How many, Instagram followers can I get? How can I sort of blue chip this into, licensing it for millions of dollars? As I said, it's just a little bit of a sad state of affairs. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll handball to you. Tell us about Beyonce's speech in a nutshell.
Okay, well, she said it's nice not to be pigeonholed into a genre. Right, which is something that you've just really said in a way. It is about artistic and how people can move fluidly through these different genres, which INXS did. And it was an artistic approach. I think she was quite gracious in her speech, actually, and she looked a little bit shocked. It might be an act, I do not know.
Of course it's an act. hey, don't look surprised. They all know who's winning and losing when they turn up at these awards. So, they have to put on loser face, so they're ready for that, or they have to put on fake winner, I'm so surprised face. So
is it that contrived, really?
oh, of course it is. Of course it is. You don't think, she'd turn up there again to lose again and suffer the indignity of that. A lot of these ones are pre-arranged and pre-balloted and people know. But
I loved the footage of Taylor Swift dancing with a bottle of champagne in one hand and a glass in the other, right in front of Beyonce and Jay-Z.
I think the Grammys are allergic to a guitar these days, a genuine guitar. If you look through all the artists in terms of any band that had a guitar in them, they're only in the metal category and in the rock category. And you know who won the rock album of the year?
Who?
Rolling Stones. Now, I love the Rolling Stones, and their latest album wasn't too bad, but it's a sign of just how decaying the industry is that a band 63 years old, it won album of the year. And the other pop rock song, whatever the year, the Beatles, Now and Then. So that's where rock music is at now in terms of sort of its zeitgeist relevance and things. So, I
okay, Haydn, we've had enough of this rant now. What else are we going to talk about?
Well, here's another one. In Australia, we didn't have one Australian act this year make the top 100 singles of the year in 2024 for the big sort of
that's a bit sad.
ARIA charts and things like that. So it is a little bit of an indictment there that music is seemingly being very narrowly marketed these days, and seems to be very narrow genres that are getting airplay. But anyway, that's the Grammys for 2024-25. We'll move along a little bit.
All right, let's hope that we get a guitar next year.
On a more positive news, we've got great patrons who we love, so we're going to welcome them aboard to this podcast.
Got a new one. I don't know the name yet, so please answer your email and then we can give you a shout out next week.
Excellent. Okay, over to you, B, with the patrons.
I'd like to say hello to everybody outside on the highway. Let's all say hello to everybody outside, to about 10,000 people at least. Hello.
Well, hello to our honorary members, Tim Farris, Nick Egan, Mark Opitz, Richard Simpkin, Cameron Adams, Mary Woods, Darren Jones and Paul Jolie. Our patrons, Carmen, Carrie-Anne, Danielle, Sarah Markham, Sarah Camia, Dr. Jim, Katie, Lisa Mack, Anne-Marie, Susan P, Pedro, Mandy, Amanda H, David, Paul Jolie, Amanda V, Ella, Ryder, Tony, Erica, Abigail, Stefan, Jim, John A. Vink, Jackie, Sheila, Helen, Brett, Suzanne, Glenn Davis, Laurel, Bard, Laurie, Manny, Jill, Heidi, Paula, Lisa, Michael, Juliet, Scott, Anthea, Tracy, Diana, Andrew, Georgie, Stephen, Mark, Vernon, Vern, Mandy Jane, Nick, Sula, Amy, Paul P, Paul B, Kathy, Jay, Amberette, John Jamin, Chantel, Neil, Mary Ellen, Giuliano, Darren, Amber, Mark, Rob, Minnie, John Bridges, and not forgetting Joe Robbins and Sue D. Welcome to the podcast.
All right, Billy. Well, very excited about this topic today. I really want to go musical today. There's a very, very interesting anniversary and a joining of the dots for two particular songs, one being Needed Tonight, that hit number one roughly this time 37 years ago. And also a week later, Beautiful Girl was released as a single. And both songs are very interesting in the INXS lexicon. And I thought we could really today dive deep and do our own sort of historical double A side. The Beatles might have Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane. We're going to combine Needed Tonight and Beautiful Girl on a double A side for this podcast topic deep dive in a few moments' time.
Excellent. Very looking forward to this one.
The B, what's the time for?
It's time for the news.
Hi, it's Dave from England, and you're listening to INXS Access All Areas with Haydn and B, and now it's time for the news.
All right, Billy, we're very excited here, okay? I can officially announce that the INXS Greatest Hits album has rejoined the top 40 in Australia, and officially this week it's at number 47, okay?
It's the top 50 then.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go. How am I going? I'm still getting over the rant. All right. Okay, number 47 in the top 50, but the more important thing is it's 400 weeks exactly in the top 50. So how good's that? So that's 8 years that it's actually sort of charted in the Australian charts in terms of...
Did pop out for a little bit, but yeah, not for long.
Yeah. Well, it's been out for 14 years, so I guess, 400 of the last 700 weeks it's been in the charts, which is fantastic. So want to acknowledge that. Also, too, we really haven't spoken much about all the tribute bands, but I did a little bit of an audit today, Ben. I thought I'd just give a shout out to each of these hardworking tribute bands around the world and some of the gigs they got coming up. So, big shout out to the tribute acts. One of them's called Kick. Great name. They've got a gig coming up in Broome, which is the top northwest of Australia. One of the most isolated gigs you could ever be.
Yeah. And hottest.
And hottest. That's in August. The Don't Change Boys, they're touring everywhere, but one of their more significant shows is here in Melbourne at the Chelsea Heights Hotel in March. The Australian INXS guys, they're touring all around the place, but I know they're in St Kilda here in March. Mystified, a USA cover band B, they're touring at a place called the Old Town Blues Club in Temecula, California in March. The Live Baby Live guys, they're playing across Queensland, particularly Toowoomba in March. The New Sensation guys, that's another US band, cover band. They're playing at the Mad Life Stage and Studios in Georgia in April. And Lee Harding, who does the Mystified show, he's doing a whole bunch of, I think, Wembley songs. And he's playing up at Coro in New South Wales, I think in the end of March, April, amidst other venues as well. So just a big shout out to all those people around the globe who are keeping the band's music alive, on top of what Andrew Farris is doing and on top of what John Stevens is doing, B.
And Ash and Moon.
And Ash and Moon, that's right. Also, too, I had to listen to a podcast today. It's a podcast called Coverville. They're up to 1,521 episodes, B, and they do acknowledgements of bands who are covered by other artists. And this is the third time they've actually done one on INXS. On their episodes, they had about 10 or 12 songs being played in honour of Michael's 65th birthday. But I would say it's worth the time of listening. Go to Coverville, episode 1521. There is a reggae version of Mystify, and it's fantastic.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Who produced that?
I don't know, but after listening to it, I got the munchies. So there you go.
Yeah. Wow.
All
Where
right.
I got that from?
That was a Bob Marley joke, but you didn't get it.
What?
All right.
I was too busy thinking, how can I get the song?
That's all right. Hello, listeners. We often say anything to do with elegantly waste from the tour and anything that's uploaded around that time, we do value and we do acknowledge a little bit because it was the end of Michael's life. It was the start of YouTube, or not long after that YouTube started. So any footage around there is always very well received. Now, one thing got posted, which has been around for a while, but it's still worth a deep dive, and that's the song Everything by INXS that they play on Top of the Pops. And I think they might have recorded that as a live single for Australia, I think from memory as well. So as the sort of single release. But there is one on for Top of the Pops there around 97 worth a deep dive. Also, too, the very famous movie The Lost Boys has a musical coming out. And that was the very famous 1986 movie where INXS's Good Times and Laying Down the Law were part of the soundtrack.
Awesome.
It's going to be out in about 2026. I believe they're going to blend some of the old songs from the show, from the movie, and they're going to add some new songs for the musical as well. So everybody seems to love a good vampire retro movie, don't they, B?
Yeah, it'll be worth a good time, won't it?
Now it's a stage show. Also, too, Goldmine Magazine's got a great little article, Top 5 INXS Classics You Should Know. Worth having a deep dive on that little online publication. Reaction videos, B, you know I love the reaction videos. If you ever want to feel good about your rock band, go watch reaction videos where people hear these great songs for the first time. There's a couple others out this week for Guns in the Sky, Never Tear Us Apart, and Mystify, so check those out. And also just a couple of little things to finish with. I know Andrew Farris did a great interview on ABC Radio Australia. It's on the Listen app. I think it's about 22 minutes, and it's a really good sort of deep dive with Andrew, who's been on the media circuit. And lastly and sadly, as you probably saw, B, just before you went overseas, I think Simon Townsend from Simon Townsend's Wonderworld, the first TV show ever to give INXS, I guess, a televised presence, where they're being interviewed at the Sydney Cricket Ground for the Simple Simon film clip. No coincidence, just a coincidence, I guess. Simple Simon being the same name of the sadly departed Simon Townsend, host of the show. He passed away early in the month at 79. So I know the band were very thankful for him and Jonathan Coleman, who also helped get the band on that show in the early days. Just, in those early days, you just need those little breaks, and they got that with that show. So Valet, R.I.P., Simon Townsend.
It was on Wonderworld, and they'd just released their first single called Believe It or Not. It was called Simple Simon. So we thought that we'd give them a go. Now here's my former reporter, Hugh Piper, back then with INXS.
Do you ever write songs with a message? Half of them got a message and half of them were fun. Has Simple Simon got a message? Very basic, yeah. What is it? It's just about guy can't fall in love because people like to talk about him.
Thinks he found himself. Only has half of her and her
Is Simple Simon your first single?
Yeah, it's the first one on vinyl.
On vinyl. And who wrote it?
A whole band, basically.
Is there one person who sort of has the ideas for
Andrew
lyrics?
wrote lyrics, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And all you got together for the music.
Yeah, all of us just put our own parts in.
What's the best thing that's happened to you so far since putting out a single?
Well, we've been able to put out an album, basically.
Yeah, great.
About July.
Andrew, how would you describe your music?
Our music, excessive beat music.
Yeah. Good to dance to.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's
Mindless rhythm.
mindless everywhere.
Hey, this is Tim Farris. Big shout out to Haydn and B. Also want to say hello to all the listeners and INXS fans. Thanks for listening. I love you, Haydn and B. Doing a great job. Keep it up.
Hi, this is Ella from Middelburg, the Netherlands. You're listening to INXS Access All Areas with Haydn and B. And now it's time for the topic of the week.
Looking forward to this topic to share with you today. I always love it. We get a bit musical and we sort of compare our histories with the song and the time it came out and just what it meant to us and things. Obviously, around this particular time in 1988, INXS hit the very peak of their commercial zenith with Need You Tonight in America. And I know Tim very proudly has a little chart sort of in a perspex thing in his office on the wall or on his desk there showing INXS number one in, I think, the 28th of January, 1988. I remember as a kid or as a young adult seeing that as a little snippet in the newspaper because back then we didn't have the internet and we didn't have YouTube and we didn't have Facebook or social media.
We had magazines.
We had magazines and we had those things called newspapers that were black and white. You would open them up and your father would sit there and your mum and dad would do the crossword and whatever. But there was this little snippet on page 2, page 3 there, INXS top charts in America. And I do remember cutting it out and things like that, being very, very proud. But that's also, I guess, the humility of bands and the lack of sort of sometimes awareness of how bands sometimes did globally, particularly when you were Australian and you were a fair distance away from the rest of the world. So, yes, INXS's Need You Tonight single, it was released a few months earlier through, touring live and doing the university and the colleges across America and building a bit of a groundswell. It built up a following and built up a sort of a presence. And then, as we know, with Richard's fantastic film clip, it really started to take off. So we're going to talk about that song today. But interestingly, I'd like to sort of juxtapose it with a song that was released about 6 years later called Beautiful Girl. Albeit it didn't sort of travail the same commercial heights as Need You Tonight, I still think it's a song that's endured really strongly. I think it's a song that seems to grow in its legacy year by year. I just thought that given its anniversary of its release and its presence in the marketplace, we could sort of come together and just examine the two songs of what they were about, what they meant, the resonance that they have today, their influence, the sounds and the production, and just some little facts around them. Hopefully our listeners will enjoy.
Excellent. I can't wait, especially Need You Tonight.
Well, let me ask you, you're in England, it's around 1987, 88. I reckon you're probably in your alternative sort of punky sort of / dance-ish / semi-alternate phase. You've had your Listen Like Thieves dose. Kick's come out. Was Kick and this song and that much of a presence in your life, or had you sort of gone down some different avenues musically?
Let me go back even further for you, Haydn, because I went to see INXS in 1986 and they sang this song at the show.
Right.
So I got to hear it live firsthand by Michael. So I got the Listen Like Thieves album thinking I knew all the songs. And then, then there was all these other great songs from Swing and, Shaboo Shabaa that I didn't know about. And that the highlight was Need You Tonight, because I'd never seen a guy dance like that ever before in my life, like I said. And so when they released it as a single, I went straight out. And I have it right here.
Yeah. B, I'd love to do a little bit of a backdrop of just where the band were at any point in time as they were releasing a song. So I thought we would do a little bit of preamble work for Need You Tonight. Now, let's just go back. You've gone to the concerts. It's 1986. They're touring. Listen Like Thieves has probably been out 12 months. The band had gone into the Australian Made series where they'd recorded the Good Times song, as discussed earlier. That had some chart presence both in America and Australia. And it was a great little filler song to sort of fill that little gaps between albums. INXS had road tested Mystify on a couple of the Australian Made sort of tour gigs. But when Need You Tonight came out, I do remember at the time, the world was sort of anticipating, like often a band has a breakthrough album where they have a big album that sells millions, it has a hit single, a couple of other middling performing singles. And, U2 probably had that with The Unforgettable Fire. REM probably had that with Green, where both bands had probably had some top 10 success with songs like Orange Crush and songs like Pride, where they just had a bit of a commercial breakthrough, particularly in America. And INXS were part of that as well with What You Need. As we've seen in the mini-series, Chris was very much like, I think I'd like the band maybe to write all the singles, and Andrew and Michael sort of were able to do that. It was like this was the album where Atlantic Records were putting the pressure on the band to come up. They felt like they were going to be that next big thing. And then Need You Tonight comes into the market and strikes. I know in Australia, at that particular time, I was in year 11 when it came out. During school at graphics communication, we were allowed to have Triple M radio on during our classes. And this song was played, I just remember during my graphics class, the first time I heard it, and then each class I'd go to, it seemed to be on Triple M all the time. And the first reaction sometimes is often the most meaningful reaction, because it's the one where you go, wow, this is different.
Yes.
This has some very different sounding.
Lots of different things. And you go, why has no one ever done that before?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I leap down to sort of the sonics part, it was very lean as a song. It wasn't hugely produced. It was definitely very spaced out and sparse. And it's almost a pin drop, could go off in the studio. You hear it.
You felt like you were there with them.
Correct. The production values, Michael's, sighs and breathing and just the
yes.
The parts for each instrument, like the guitar parts, and the drumming part and the bass parts are very identifiable. So I just remember, coming off what was quite a heavy album, which was, Listen Like Thieves. And Listen Like Thieves was probably an antidote to the swing that was probably very produced and electronic, whereas Listen Like These was very guitar-driven, very heavy, very rockish. So this was an interesting sort of, I guess, left-hand turn. Andrew's often said that, this particular song had some sort of pedigree with a song called Underneath the Colours, which had very similar sort of sparse dynamics and things as well. And you can hear the sort of similarity, I guess, between the two if you go back and play Underneath the Colours.
I would even say it was one of their first sensual songs.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think for Michael, it was literally like, this guy's 27, he's a man in his own sort of, legend beginning, and they wanted to sort of highlight the best parts of the band and said, well, look, Michael, let's have you up front and personal. Let's turn the mics up, on your production. Like studio wizardry, if you compare something like Heaven Sent, the Michael vocal is sort of, distorted, and they play around with it. In this particular song, it's crisp, it's clean. You can hear every and ah and sigh and breath. Look, it connected, with the female audiences there, connected, with the male audiences there. In particularly, this is a song that had sort of R&B type funk roots that really connected with the black community in America. So much so, a lot of people thought this was sort of a black person singing because it had these sort of overtones there. What, for you, B, struck you in the early days of listening to this in England and connecting with you?
Well, the fact that Michael was just so good looking to begin with, that always draws you in. But this song, he made it his own, and it was more of a dance song compared to what they'd had before. So when you saw him, I was from the UK at the time, when I saw him on the rounds for Listen Like Thieves, and he was dressed in the leather jacket, and, it was slightly on that softer rock sort of feel. But when he sang this, a real standout, I think it pricked a lot of ears, and hence why it was such a hit.
That's right. Well, a couple of facts behind it. It was released officially on the 21st of September 1987. A lot of people that have the early format that you've got there in your hands there, B, which is, I think, the vinyl collection. Is that a 12-inch version there or the 7?
Yeah, my 12-inch.
Yes. On a lot of the 7-inch formats, it came sort of with that silhouette cover as well, with the band in that silhouette sort of shadings.
It's the graphics.
The great Nick Egan sort of, branding thing at the top there with the INXS insignia there in red and white. It had the B-sides I'm Coming Home, but also had Mediate on obviously is that Coda song there as well, which we'll talk about in a moment.
I didn't realise that I'm Coming Home was produced just solely by Tim.
Yeah, so look, again, probably that sort of commenced, well, probably happened earlier, but often each band member, particularly the less prolific writing ones, were given the B-sides to rock. In the charts, obviously hit number 1, as we said, in America. I think that the world gang-tackled England and put them in a headlock tackle and said, come on, peaking at 58, you guys have to re-release this. You guys are not listening. Come on, record companies there. Come on, Top of the Pops. Play it. You're missing something here that you're not getting. You can't be this stupid as a nation and not get it. So they re-release in England. It goes number 2. Right?
What funny.
Right. Ireland got it straight away.
It's not the people's fault, Haydn. It was the DJs, okay?
Well, there you go. Okay. But you can't be that dumb and make it 58. Okay, come on, England, wake up. In Ireland, it hit number 2. The Irish have always been smarter. In Canada, number 2. Ironically, in Australia, I don't hit number 3. But for my homework, I'm going to go back and try and work out what was number 1 and 2, what beat it. And if it is, I'm going to go.
It was that, what you gotta do? Hey.
Well, no, that was a few years earlier. But I'd love to know what song number 1 and 2 beat it in Australia, because I might have to do like a Bee Gees I Hate Disco burning of their singles. In America, interesting, at the end of the year when they did the whole year charts, it was in the charts long enough to be the number 2 ranked song of the year out of all the tracks. In 2006, it also recharted in America because it actually had a DJ outfit called Revenger, Koishi and Hush did these mixes or remixes, and hit number 16 in 2006 in the dance charts. In Australia with the mini-series, when that got launched, as we know, there was just a massive influx of songs being re-released. Spotify was around in 2014, so Never Tear Us Apart charted in Australia. Need You Tonight came back into the charts at 28 in 2014. Obviously, Richard Lowenstein's, videos are iconic, just melding sort of the, the stop-start sort of motion, photography there, the really creative 3D, almost dynamic, showing Michael up front and the band at the back, and just fantastic production values. And then also, from a cultural zeitgeist point of view, nearly exactly a year later, September 88, it scooped the pool at the MTV Awards, winning 5 awards amongst about 7 or 8 nominations. It ended up being ranked in MTV's Greatest 100 Videos at number 21. But that was a time when the Grammys were the MTV Awards were cooler than the Grammys. INXS were really at that sort of peak scenario that I guess we've discussed on sort of previous sort of podcast. I guess as a song, hearing it now 37 years later, it's probably a song that I would say personally, but for about 20 years, I'd probably skip it if I was listening to Kick, or I'd skip it a little bit if it was on the radio sometimes. But I think maybe just through the first reaction videos and really embracing a lot of other people just watching it for the first time, I've fallen in love with it again as a song.
Like an old girlfriend.
Well, yeah, appreciating for what it actually sort of is. Again, because sometimes something does get hammered a bit on the radio, and it does sometimes pierce the eardrums a little bit too much, and you sometimes die of 1,000 cuts. But I've had a break from it. I've come back to it. I've reappreciated it. Also through other artists who have covered this song, it's interesting to see, that it has sort of, I guess, lived on in different dynamics. A few people that you're probably aware of and our listeners are over the journey, but Justin Timberlake at the peak of his powers, would play this live at most of his gigs. He's a guy that probably, was listening to this song at 10 or 12 years of age. Again, probably got him into music, just hearing a song like this. Bonnie Raitt, only a year or two ago, re-released a version of this with a bit of a country blues twang on it. The famous actress Liv Tyler, Steve Tyler, Aerosmith's daughter, she released a version. Kylie plays it live. The Rogue Traders did a remix in 2003 that was quite seminal. And Dua Lipa, as we've said before, uses the guitar, riffs on it for her. For her single off one of her last albums, which thankfully got credited to Michael and Andrew. So it's a song that sort of lives on, through the fact that it's very generational. People grew up with it. It's had a life to itself. You never lose that number 1 tag. You've had number 1 hit single, in the country. It's played probably in America every day, around the world, around the globe, and it's probably great mailbox money for the band 37 years later.
And all around the world, if that comes up on if you're at a party and you hear those couple of beats, you're up.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It has that introductory song, and then the 12-inch remix is something that was fantastic as well. And INXS just had such a sort of a sound that would lend itself to DJs mixing it up as well. The interesting thing that people aren't always familiar with, and I know Michael and Tim were asked this in a MTV documentary in about 1990. They were literally asked about the influence of playing, this funk music and this funk rock sort of dance thing. The question was posed to them, literally about other bands that have influenced. And Michael happened to say, well, it's, I don't think it's a coincidence that bands like the Chili Peppers, who, came out in 88, 89, probably 89, with a song called Higher Ground, which was a cover of Stevie Wonder's song, which was a really funky sound. And then went on to do Blood, Sex, Sugar Magic, which Under the Bridge, you hear a song like Under the Bridge, it really takes the INXS riff in the same format. Fine Young Cannibals not long after, through Drive Me Crazy, Drives You Crazy. And then, the Faith No More guys with Epic, having these sort of funky, sort of metal type sort of rock sound. This song, I think, allowed white guys to play funky music and be successful doing it without the criticism.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a bit of a trailblazing influence that should help them get inducted to the Hall of Fame.
And there's some great footage on YouTube. If you do want to watch INXS play these songs live, there's numerous ones.
And look, obviously, we didn't talk much earlier about Mediate in the sense that, other than saying that it was obviously on the B-side, but, when you do hear this particular song played live or on, say, TV shows, particularly film clip shows, it's very often that they will just veer into Mediate and it has the same sort of, drum tempo, beat, etc. there, which they often call it a coda song, a sort of a joining type song that links in nicely. So I remember at the MTV wasn't the one, they kept going, Need Your Night Mediate. Well, I remember my Mediate, and maybe that time I wasn't quite familiar with Mediate as much, and I'm like, why do you say Mediate in the awards? That's a different song on the album, but it's actually sort of recorded under the same banner as Need You Tonight. So just an interesting another dynamic in that they've gone into almost this instrumental and then this rap song, which is what Mediate is. It's an early rap song, Michael, without the sort of the histrionics, and poignant in itself. So Need You Tonight, I think, just culturally and significantly, it's still, still relevant. It's still a song that's rated highly in polls. It still has massive radio airplay. It's still a lot of people's favourite, well-known song for them. And note for the passing fans, it represents a song that they attach to,
Yeah. Just going back to Mediate there, Michael didn't actually pen that one, did he? It was Andrew, and Andrew came up with the 8. And do you remember him telling us about that? That was pretty cool. Yeah, so it took a long time for Michael to know the songs. So I think he actually used to write them down and then rip them up and give
He put it on paper on live, but it was almost theatrically like, Jim Morrison done, so it was quite theatrical on stage. But I used to always be amazed watching Michael sing Mediate live and seeing how he used to nail the lyrics, and remember them. And, I know myself, I say predicate too often and ornate too often and, all those things. Yeah, it's just like an interesting, cool little subplot that you have this sort of second song that's linked to the first song. And again, as we said with Kick's a weird album. It's very commercial sounding, familiar now. But as Atlantic saw at the time, they didn't see it as this commercial sort of, juggernaut, because there's a lot of weird veering sort of type of stretches on it. We see it as normal now. We see it as familiar. We see it as commercial. As I said, Mediate probably, and even Need You Tonight, is quite a weird veering song from the normal things you heard at the time.
Yeah, well, they gave him $1 million. Well, they were going to give them $1 million to re-record, weren't they?
That's right. And I got a feeling Chris didn't tell the band. He was like, they love it, mate. It's all great.
Yeah, I think he didn't tell them more things.
That's right. Anything else we Need You Tonight for you, B, that sort of relates to now? Is there anything sort of significant for you now? I think it's probably played at all the live gigs. So, and I also think INXS, once it was released, I don't think they ever not played it live at any gig thereafter. I think it was a staple,
Yeah, I would say it was a staple. Our friend Blair from Don't Change, the ultimate INXS band that goes around Australia, he nails Mediate. He's very, very good. But no, I think you've said quite a bit on that one. I'm quite looking forward to talking about Beautiful Girl now.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll veer into Beautiful Girl now. And for the sake of our exercise, we're putting together a double A side anniversary tribute today. We've got Need You Tonight on our 1A side, and on our second double A, we're going to put on Beautiful Girl. Now, a little bit of backdrop about Beautiful Girl, B. Did you know it was the 5th single released off Welcome, and probably one of the most commonly sort of played tracks still to this day off Welcome versus the other 4 singles? Not to deny the others' worth, but it probably is the song that has lived on longest on this album in terms of radio airplay. It's licensed to movies. It's been covered. It's been re-recorded with Pat Monahan and things. Initially, it was released on the 1st of February 1993. Obviously an Andrew track, and I think, as you remember Michael lost a lot of lyrics in the cab on his way to Australia to release Welcome. It may suggest why Andrew had 3 or 4 sort of soul writing sort of tracks on Welcome, this being one of them. The album cover in front of you there, B. Do you want to put it up to the camera?
I will.
Our audiences.
Okay. Well, it's very colourful. It
Great
looks
colours.
it looks like a photograph.
Yeah.
It looks like, well, it's definitely a lovely bunch of grapes, very edible, red, very blue grapes.
Do you think it's a Michael reference to black grape?
Oh, would it
Maybe.
be? No. But the leaves are lovely and red, so it really pops, doesn't it? And then it's like a little bit of tape in the middle with the graphics.
It's on all the singles there around that time, yeah.
Right. And then it's got a black border as well, so it really stands out.
It does. And I think this was part of the less is more part of the band in the 90s where they didn't put any of their own photographs on any of the CD singles or the
And I can't remember it being on vinyl.
Well, it was a little bit, but I remember buying it as a tape to start with as a CD single. But yeah, I think it was more of a promo release on the vinyl side. And then there might be some stuff around the time where it was limited release on vinyl. But we weren't fully fledged into that CD era then, CD singles. Now, in terms of the formats, the most common formats at that particular time had the Tim track again in my living room. And they had a Kirk track on there, which was
A Star Speaks.
Speaks, that's right. And then on some of the versions also, you got the original version of Strange Desire, which was really, well, probably you'd find it a sexy version because it's a lot of grunting and groaning from Michael and only a little bit.
Don't we love that, girls?
I know the girls would, but it is sort of one where they haven't quite formed the lyrics yet, I don't think. And you're hearing a bit more of a sort of instrumental version of Strange Desire with Michael making some strange desired sounds and noises, a few lyrics thrown in. But again, a great collector's edition for the CDs.
We're back.
And Wishing Well was on there.
Yeah, Wishing Well was on some of the formats as well. I think there was a maxi version out there where you could get underneath the colours, ironically, we mentioned earlier, and Wishing Well.
Yeah, instrumental version.
Yeah, and look, I know as a collector at that time, it was a real peak period of collecting. I just wanted to get everything and have every CD version and tape version and, maxi single and things because, you just want... Chart performance-wise, in Australia, only hit number 34. Canada, always been a great supporter of the band, number 9. USA hit 46. The UK hit 23. Probably the most significant sort of legacy of this particular song was the iconic video from Mark Callington that was Grammy nominated. I think it was beaten by Peter Gabriel's Steam. Yeah. We had Mark on our show last year, roughly this time a year ago, B, and one of our great episodes that we enjoyed doing. And Mark was quite proud of being nominated for the Grammys, but I think he said, we went along, we went there, and then we booted off to the pub afterwards. And Grammys weren't that big in those days. I can't even remember who I lost to.
But he gave some great insight to that video. Yeah. Because we thought it was, we did know it was about, body dysmorphia, but it was a dedicated more for his a girlfriend at the time was going through stuff, wasn't she? So that was really good, interesting stuff. If you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to I think it's over 2 parts, isn't it, with Mark?
Look, I don't normally do this, but I could share actually a personal anecdote of this particular time when I was describing this video to a girl that I was sort of eventually breaking up with within a couple of weeks of this being released. And I said, did you see the new video? It's there's supermodels in it. It's really, really meaningful and it really pays homage to, anorexia and blah, blah. And because she started hating me, she was like, bloody Mike Hutchins, he goes with supermodels and that's all bad taste. And she got on a high horse. So I think it was more about me being an idiot and not her liking me anymore. But I remember she went to town on this video. That's okay, Jenny. Good luck. I hope life has worked out well for you. Moving along. It got nominated for a Grammy. Mark, and look, this is quite an important video for Mark's career because he was doing, I think, the U2 One clip around this time, a year or two earlier, and it helped propel him to do stuff with Pearl Jam and Jeremy and a lot of these other movies he went into. So, just a great example of INXS again attaching themselves to significant filmmakers and early in their careers who were talented and artistic. And again, great example of a video piece. Really coming nicely with the sentiment of the music. Even if the lyric was something different, they do accompany each other nicely.
And who hasn't sung this to their little baby girl?
Very true. Very true. I reckon you have a number of times.
And I know, and I bet you have played it in the
You'll always be a beautiful girl, won't she be?
Oh, Mila. And your little girl, Ella.
That's right. Now, let's get into the sounds of this particular song. Now, I'll throw to you. Tell us, when you first heard it or when you have heard it over the years, what jumps out at you particularly?
It's incredibly sweet and innocent, as in the music to begin with. And you're drawn in with that little plinky plonky children's keyboard. But really, the lyrics are pretty dark.
I think for probably Andrew at this particular stage, writing the lyrics, being a sort of new father, and I think he was living in the UK and traveling and life being more than just himself. He was realizing what it was to be a parent and things. Interesting, you mentioned about the sort of the toy type piano keyboard. I think he found something quite sort of infantile like that to use.
Yes.
What I again love about this song and why doing this episode today with Need You Tonight is that it's similarly quite minimalistic and sparse, and each instrument shines and each vocal is in its own merit, and they both sort of are quite stripped back in a sense. When I first heard this particular one, I thought, oh my God, Michael sounds like Lou Reed from the Velvet Underground here. He's really bringing down an octaval. He's singing a very lower register, and he's not sort of INXSifying it into this big bombastic production. Like, we love Never Tear Us Apart and we love By My Side, but they are big songs. They are big orchestral productions. I give Mark Opitz a lot of credit for this particular song, because whether he was behind, less is more on this, I think he pushed the band musically to say, look, fine album, but, there's probably a little bit of kick part to it. I really want you guys to explore yourself and be very musical on this particular album. I think this song's an example of that, where, Michael, don't be afraid to wear an influence on your sleeve like a Lou Reed. Don't be afraid to wear an influence on your sleeve like the Velvet Underground and sing in a lower register and sing it for the whole song and less is more and be restrained with your vocal and still have that plaintive type of sort of plea in the lyric, but be restrained and let's keep the production a little bit lowercase and things like that and keep things really, really sort of, I guess, melancholy and sedate and just small. But by being small, it's almost given it a sense of grandeur, hasn't it, over the journey?
Yeah, it hasn't lost it, has it?
It ages really well in that regard. And, we love Not Enough Time and we love, Baby Don't Cry. But if you look at something like Baby Don't Cry in this song, I think Baby Don't Cry is probably setting itself out to be a big song and a big hit and a big sort of production. And it's definitely sort of aiming to do the biggest and the best it can do. Whereas this particular song, it's
brings it back down.
Yeah, it's song 7 or 8 or 9, I guess. It might be song 8 or whatever on the album. So it's not exactly up front on the first side. So it probably wasn't expected to necessarily even be a single, but I think in the Australian singles release, they released Not Enough Time and Tasted as a double A. So when I say the 5th single here, it technically, you could say it's the 4th release, the 5th overall single, but it is sort of something that's aiming to be a little bit less, succeeds because it doesn't try out where it's welcome and try to be something bigger. And it was a bit of a change. And as I said earlier, the early 90s were about less is more, the covers, not having the band, jumping off a Maserati or anything, hyperbolic. It's a small song, but I think it has a big statement it makes by being small.
Did you mention Niven Garland and Bob and Clearmont?
Bob Clearmountain?
Man.
Yeah, look, these guys were part of that production on the album. So, look, I haven't mentioned them today, but look, they were. Bob had worked with them on Kick before, and Niven. I think Niven might be selling. He might be doing the olives over in Spain now.
Oh, right. Yes, he did.
I think that might be mentioned by Mark. I think. I think the production's really, really, really great, and Kirk's saxophone's interesting. Compare the saxophone ending to this song to Never Tear Us Apart. Again, an example of restraint, less is more. In terms of influence over time, I'm glad they used it as a song on their self-fulfilled covers album. They got Pat Monahan in to re-sing it. And, I love the version. It's one of those unique songs where I love the Brian Ferry version of Jealous Guy and I love the original John Lennon version of Jealous Guy. And in this instance here, the Pat Monahan version does probably drama it up a little bit, where it's probably a big song there. But again, if you're going to rework something, why not do it differently? And you could see that other version with Pat sing on it as a bit. It has been in some movies. Now, it was in a Rob Schneider movie called The Animal. Don't go see it. I think it's got a 4% Rotten Tomatoes rating, but it is in a scene there. I think it might be in the promo for Love and Other Drugs with Anne Hathaway and Jake Gyllenhaal. I remember going to the movie expecting to see it, but it was more one of those songs played on the ad for the movie. It wasn't in the movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Brandon Flowers did record it with the band in 2009 when he was touring out here with the Killers and things and doing a couple of solo shows. As we've said previously, management got involved and said, no, you're not releasing. You've got a new single coming out called Flamingos off your solo album soon. We don't want to confuse our audience. So it's sort of one that's sat in the archives. Maybe down the track it could come out in some incarnation, B. I thought also in terms of influence and time, it is universal and quite timeless, the lyric, as you sort of said earlier. It sort of, will always resonate with that level. It also reminded me a little bit of John Lennon's Beautiful Boy, in not in the content or the melody, but just the lyric and the sentiment. That lyric and that ode from John to Sean is such a wonderful song. I think Andrew's captured something similar with this particular song. I put just down here, I'll read it out word for word here, but I think it helps cement Welcome to Wherever We Are's musical legacy and act as a real point of difference in experimentation, subtlety. Post-stadium rock was the goal. They were trying to deflate the bubble a little bit. They wanted to record more. This represented quite an experimental time for the band, and it really is in sync with what their ambitions were. They were able to execute it sort of with this particular song as well. Again, not everybody remembers chart positions. There are plenty of songs that were number 50 in the charts or number 80. Like Don't Change is number 80 in the charts in America, right? But it doesn't diminish the song at all, does it?
No, at all. No.
So chart positions really are relative. There's plenty of number one songs like My Humps from the Black Eyed Peas that probably don't resonate 15 years later and probably didn't resonate at the time. I never thought I'd have My Humps mentioned on the INXS podcast, Billy.
How many humps have you got, Haydn?
I don't know. But the reality is a good song is a good song. And I guess, the ones that do translate over, what is now 32 years. It's like, it feels like it was, 10 years ago. Like it's gone so fast.
Great songs, both of them. And it's lovely that we've got them on this little album little CD we've got on here.
Time capsule in time, late January, early February of the respective years that, they had such a sort of an influence at their time. One big and one mass commercial, result, globally, but probably didn't set out to do that with Need You Tonight. It was just, they just wanted to do something different. And, Beautiful Girl, as I said, a slightly smaller release, a smaller commercial appeal, but still a resonance many years later. So, yeah, thank you again, B, for letting me waffle as you do on these particular deep dives. We have a little special sneak section at the end of the show with one of these tracks being performed by someone famous.
Hey, this is Paul Jolly from Sydney, and this is The Big Rat.
All right, B, that's a wrap. It's a little bit of a sad one, for us today because, in our INXS community over the journey, last few years, we had lots of fantastic people we interacted with. And unfortunately, through life and death, we've had one or two people leave us. And unfortunately, in the last sort of couple of weeks, we have had a person who's very well known amongst the INXS sort of fan community pass away. She was very instrumental with Dr. Jim in getting the change petition for the man. And her name was Dina Graham B. And unfortunately, she passed away. And we do want to dedicate this sort of episode to her. And she was a beautiful girl. And we do need her tonight. And I'm sure hopefully she's up there with Michael and Chris, letting them know what's going on with the change petition.
Oh, bless her.
And she was such a dedicated person behind the scenes. Did you have some words you wanted to share as well?
We're going to miss her. She was a beautiful soul as well as a beautiful girl. We had lots of conversations. She was very dedicated in getting INXS into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She absolutely adored this band. So if you want to do something for Dina, just sign that petition or even get your mates to sign the petition because we'll carry on her work. We were all devastated, but we will all carry on.
Absolutely. What we'd like to do is we'll do something a little bit upbeat. She's a beautiful girl. We're not going to go with beautiful girl. We're going to go out with something a little bit more upbeat on behalf of the podcast. It is Justin Timberlake playing Need You Tonight live, singing it with passion, singing with surf.
Sure, she would love that too.
And I'm sure she would love it. And, maybe we'll get Justin along to induct into the Hall of Fame. Who knows?
Who knows?
But this is a very powerful song. We'd like to dedicate it. And the whole episode to Dina. She's a beautiful girl. We do need her tonight. We say, valet, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from B. Goodbye, everybody.
Hello, welcome to INXS Access All Areas, a podcast that aims to dive deep into all things great about our favourite band, INXS. Doing it with a bunch of patrons around the world, listeners, would-be startup people coming in and just checking us out one-on-one. B, how are you? You're back from Bali. You look refreshed.
Thank you very much. I feel very refreshed, although I've got piles of work to do. I can't wait to get into it. I've got my INXS jacket on and I'm fired.
I feel like through the power of editing and banking some episodes that I really haven't spoken to you for about 3 weeks, which is probably the case. We did actually, before going away, unleash the episode of our very, very trusty friend from Guinness, whose name is Mel Walker. Great name for a sort of an activity, Mel Walker. But a great episode that we really enjoyed doing, which was really going back to the heady early days of INXS, which is probably pre-INXS with Guinness. We also then put out sort of a bit of a rehash, reissue one of our older Michael tribute episodes that we had like 300, 400, 500 people download that and imagine and re-listen to that, which was very, very pleasing. Since you've been away, B, as you probably know, we put an episode in the vault just before you left with the Hall of Fame visitors, be it John Jamin and Dr. Jim, Danielle from our trusty backup team. Also, we have an episode in the vault that myself, Dr. Jim, John, joined with Nick Bombach from the USA regarding just the Hall of Fame itself.